Hi. A little while ago, I have talked about the 7 parables of the Lotus Sutra in Chinese, and a member asked if I can translate it in English. So today I'm trying to upload it in English. I remember when I was young, I heard a lot of stories and analogies, and each one does carry a message for us to learn. That is why, after describing each parable of the Lotus Sutra, I will also talk about the message behind. Shakyamuni Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, taught Buddhism principles for 52 years, and in the last 8 years, he said, "The time has come for me to tell you the highest teaching," and that is the Lotus Sutra. He also said that once you honor and follow the Lotus Sutra, you can discard all of my previous teachings, which were taught according to the needs and standards of people. Because in those days, people were not quite educated, and it was hard for them to understand a profound theory. So the Buddha used a lot of parables to help people understand the meaning behind. The first parable is called the burning house. It was about a rich man who had a large mansion, but this mansion is very rundown and was disintegrating. It could crumble down any time, and it also had only one door. The rich man had a lot of children playing happily inside. One day, the house was on fire, and the rich man asked his children to quickly come out. However, his children, lost in their fun and joy, refused to listen. The rich man then thought of a way to bring the children out. Knowing his children loved to play, he called out, "Come, children, I have ox cart, a goat cart, and a deer cart for you to play with." Hearing this, all his children quickly came out, and the rich man then gave them each a big white ox cart. Here, the rich man represents the Buddha, and his children represents ordinary people. The worn-down mansion represents the chaotic world people live in, and the one door represents the only way to achieve enlightenment. Knowing his children were too involved in playing, the rich man attracted them with their favorite toys. This means that in order to make people start practicing Buddhism, sometimes the Buddha will use expedient means to help. The one door means that there is only one Buddha vehicle which can help us attain Buddhahood, and that is the Lotus Sutra. Actually, the chaotic world in this parable represents the world we are living in. We are living now in a world with disease, viruses, hunger, wars, jealousy, fire, drought, and there are a lot of world disasters. That is why we all need to practice the Lotus Sutra. The Buddha wants to save us and knows that everything starts from our heart and our thinking. He says to all worldly things, we must not be greedy, and we must not be affected by any situation. If we follow the above, we can obtain peace at heart, coupled with wisdom and compassion, and stop comparing with others, and ready to give but do not expect anything in return, always full of gratitude, that only we can leave the crumbling, burning house, we can also help other people. The second parable is called the poor son and his rich father. Once upon a time, there was a little boy who was lost, and he lived a very hard life. After 10 to 20 years, he was still begging for his living. Meanwhile, his father had become very successful and gained a lot of money. One day, this poor son went by his father's house without recognizing it. However, his father saw him and knew that he was his son, and asked his servants to invite his son to come and work as a servant. Since then, the son worked very hard, but the father did not reveal his true identity. Having gained his father's trust, And as his father's deathbed, the father called in everybody and announced to everybody that this young man was his son, and he would pass on all his wealth to him. This story tells us that the four disciples of the Buddha, represented by the poor son, knew that at first they were not ready to receive the one vehicle to become enlightened. However, after years of effort, they were ready for this vehicle. When Shakyamuni first became enlightened, the first thing he said was, "There is Buddhahood in all living things." By living beings, he did not mean just men, but all living beings, including trees, flowers, plants, animals, fishes, etc. Anything that has life is a Buddha. And we have to believe that we are Buddhas, and there is Buddhahood in every one of us. Knowing that everyone is a Buddha, we have to respect and love all living beings. In the Lotus Sutra, there is a never slighting bodhisattva who bowed to everybody and said, "I will respect you because you are a Buddha." The third parable is called Medicinal Herbs. In this world, there are different plants, flowers, trees, grass, with different sizes, heights, and different needs. When the rain falls on every plant without any difference. But the plants will take in the rain according to their sizes and their needs. Likewise, we know that there is only one vehicle, that is the Lotus Sutra, like the rain, which is available to everyone. But because of the different standards of people, how they receive and practice the sutra is very different. Just like the plants taking in rain. The next parable is called the Mystical City. There was a group of men who wanted to travel to get a huge treasure. And to reach this treasure, they need to go through a very dangerous road, and they had hired a very smart guide to help them. At the beginning, everyone was very enthusiastic. Midway, they started to complain and wanted to back off because the road was too difficult to travel. The wise guide, not wanting them to give up halfway, created a magic city which had everything they need. Once in the magic city, all travelers were so happy that they didn't want to leave. At that time, the guide made the magic city disappear and told the travelers they were already halfway to the treasure and encouraged them to go on. This parable tells us when we first start chanting, we will get benefits. However, continue practicing, we will find that there are lots of things we need to do, to learn, to change, to obtain absolute happiness, just like the treasure. Unfortunately, quite a few people do not want to go through this process and decided to drop this practice. That is why the initial benefits that we get from chanting are just encouragements to encourage us to go on practicing. And if you continue to do this, you will definitely attain happiness. This is why when we teach people chanting, we have to continue follow up and encourage them, explain to them this profound theory so they will not drop off. The next parable is called A Jewel in the Rope. There was a poor man who went to visit his rich friend. They had a good dinner and they drank a lot of wine and they were both drunk. In the morning, the rich man had to go to another place. Before he left, he saw the jewel in his poor friend's robe. When the poor man woke up, not seeing his friend, he left and continued to live a very hard life, begging for his food. One day, he came across his rich friend, who was very bewildered to see his poor friend still struggling for his living. He then told his friend that he had sewn a piece of jewel in his robe, and there was no need for him to go on begging. This story tells us that we are all Buddhas. We have the most precious jewel inside us, which is called the Buddhahood, representing wisdom, courage, compassion, life force, good fortune, peace, and happiness, which can help us overcome any problems and achieve any goals. Unfortunately, a lot of us either do not know or do not believe that we have the jewel, the Buddhahood, inside us. This is why we continue to suffer. The next parable is called the pearl in the top knot. This parable tells about a mighty king who had a lot of soldiers. After winning wars, the mighty king gave his soldiers a lot of jewels as a reward. However, he kept the most precious jewel, a pearl in his top knot, until a big war was won. Here, the mighty king represents the Buddha. The soldiers represent ordinary people. The various jewels he initially gave his soldiers represent the various teachings he gave in his 42 years of teaching. The pearl he kept in his top knot represents the Lotus Sutra, which he waited until his soldiers were ready before he handed it to them. Likewise, the Buddha, in his 42 years of teaching, did not reveal the highest truth, the Lotus Sutra, and waited until the time was ripe before he started to pass it on to us. The next parable is called The Good Doctor and His Sick Children. There was a father who had a lot of children who were poisoned and were very sick. And those children who were not very sick decided to take the medicine which the father gave them to cure of the sickness. However, the rest of the children who were very, very sick did not realize how good the medicine the father tried to give them and refused to take it. Trying to help his children, the father went away to the next city and sent a message to his children saying that he was dead. Hearing the death of his father, those children who did not take the medicine missed his father so much, they started to remember what he said and started to take the medicine, and they were cured. Later, the father came back to them and told them it was just an expedient means to encourage them to take the medicine. This parable tells us that Shakyamuni Buddha's life is eternal. He would not die. But he chose to leave us because he knows that if he lived on and on, people will become complacent and would not follow his teaching. That's why he chose to die, in order to encourage us to practice Buddhism. So I hope these parables can help you understand more of the important theories in the Lotus Sutra. Thank you.